Hello everybody, my name is Federico Sismondi. I work in India. I work particularly for the f-interop European project, f-interop platform. I'm going to show you today a little demo on how the CoAP testing tool works for interoperability tests, for CoAP interoperability tests. And if at any point you have some questions or you want to provide us some feedback, you can send me an email directly to federico.sismondi@indria.fr. So in this tutorial we will show how to execute interop tests between a CoAP server driven by the user and a CoAP client hosted in the f-interop platform. So if you go to official documentation, you will find a guided tour of the CoAP test suite. This tutorial shows the opposite, right? So user coming to the platform with a CoAP client and testing against CoAP servers which are deployed in the platform. I recommend you to go through this tutorial before doing any test. It explains in detail each step and what you should expect. Let's get started. The only thing you need to create a session, interoperability test session, is to have an account in the f-interop platform. For doing so, you just access here go.f-interop.eu. You provide your information, you will be asked to confirm your email, and after that you will be ready to start the tests. So let's get into it. I'm gonna go and choose, I want to run an interoperability test, and from the list I will choose, I want to run particularly a CoAP test suite as a single user. Okay, later on I'll put a video also on how to do user-to-user interoperability sessions, which each user drives an implementation, and there's no, as we were explaining before, reference implementations hosted or deployed by f-interop automatically. So in here we have a little configuration phase. We can choose some parameters like which test cases we want to run. So for this demo I'm just going to choose two test cases, TD CoAP Core 01 and Core 02. You can check the specification of these test cases in the URL there provided. This is going to be the reference documentation for how to execute the test, right? So, and as a last parameter, you have to choose which implementation you want to deploy. For our case, I'm going to choose Californium CoAP client. So I save the configuration and I click on start for deploying, and after this finishes we'll be ready to start running the tests. So okay, the first thing that the GUI is gonna ask us is about the setup, right? Is Federico Sismondi, meaning me, running the implementation on the test CoAP client? We're going to answer no. As we already said, we're going to be running the CoAP server. CoAP client is the reference implementation hosted in f-interop. I run the CoAP server, yes. Now we just have to export a couple of environment variables which are going to be used by the agent. Cd agent. Okay, so we export this, we export that. This is a URL for creating the connection to the backend of our session, right? Of our virtual room, let's say. So I confirm this. There you have the commands for downloading the source code and how to install it. Very soon I'm gonna be uploading to PyPy the binaries so that you don't have to install it from the sources, which is way more practical. And last step of this setup is to execute the command which corresponds to our implementation, which in our case is CoAP server again. So I do this. Now that we have used this with super user rights with sudo. This is because the CoAP, the agent needs to open a virtual interface in our machine and configure the routing table. Okay. So if you want to take a look at our source code before doing so, you're encouraged to do that. You can do it by accessing the GitLab of a project you have in there. Okay, http GitLab.f-interop.eu f-interop contributors/agent. So here we have some information about what's the whole setup between the two agents, the two implementations, the packet router, and you can find more information in the link here below. I'm going to skip this. This phase is about checking that what we have running is actually working. So as you can see, the tunnel was already created. These are the logs of the agent, right? There were some modifications in our routing table. We can do a couple of checks. For example, if we do if config, we're going to see that our tune interface was created. We're assigned the IP BBB2. And the implementation will be running on BBB1. So we can do ping 6 BBB1. And the other, let's say the host operating system of our implementation is answering to our requests. So, okay, let's confirm this. And that's the testing tool sending a lot of messages to our graphical user interface. There are some IPv6 messages like nego solicitations and so on. Important thing is that we can start filtering the information here in the GUI, right? So we can display, for example, all the messages exchanged when clicking packets. We can see the information regarding the test suite. In this case, it's just a table of all the test cases which are programmed in the testing tool. We have the URLs there. As I mentioned before, we can access this and get all the information about the test suite, about the interrupt test cases. And well, in our case, we're just going to click on test case number 1 and start executing this. We have some information about pre-configuration, how to do the CoAP server. I have a little binary here, which is already ready to start executing the test cases. I'm going to launch it in BBB2 on the port 5683. And the whole thing is ready to start running the test suite. So I'm gonna say, okay, start test case number 1. The test case number 1 is a test where we check, where we test get transaction mode. Okay, so if we check on the logs of my implementation, which I'm using is California CoAP server. Let's say that you got a request and there was a reply back. Okay, the test suite has captured those packets, which are somewhere here. Reply, request, reply, request. Here. So here you have the whole dissection of the message, right? IPv6, UDP, CoAP, CoAP get, con, all the information. I'm pretty sure the reply comes right after, yeah. And here we have the CoAP reply. So we have the information, or let's say the byte stream, and also the dissection, the string representation of the fields of those exchange packets. And well, let's go back to the test case. And the test case issued a verdict, say verdict passed. There was no interoperability error detected, which is great. Here we have some details about what actually was checked during what checks were performed during that during this test, right? So here it says that the testing tool saw a packet coming from BB1 to 2, which was a CoAP GET request to resource test, and that matched a certain template, let's say, and there was also a similar check on the response. So that's why we got assigned a pass. So let's go and do the same for test case number 2. The test case number 2 checks delete transaction. Okay, so I'm going to say tc start, the reference implementation running on the backend is processing that information and sending the request back to our server. And in here we have the same situation where the pass, we have similar type of checks, but for the delete method, matching mechanism also matching against some templates predefined by f-interop, and everything seems to be fine. We can check also in our implementation that the request was processed correctly. So you have the delete there and the answer here. And that's pretty much it. Our test suite, we configured it just to execute 2 test cases. We can see a report at the end saying test case 1 passed, no interoperability error was detected, the same for 2. And we have the little the detailed information I was explaining to you before, also here in a little summary table. Well, that was it. After you finish your test suite, you just click on end session, and that's pretty much it. Later on, you can come back to the f-interop platform and retrieve all these reports of the previously executed sessions and so on. So stay tuned for the next videos, where I'm going to be showing how to execute a user-to-user session later on, and maybe post some videos on how to use other test suites which are not for CoAP. Thank you very much for listening, and don't forget, if you have any comments, questions, or feedback, send me an email to federico.sismondi@inria.fr.